Welcome to Casual Conversations, brought to you by Momentum Ministries, helping you attain, maintain, and regain spiritual momentum. Let's join the conversation with Scott Wade, president of Momentum Ministries.
Good morning. It's great to have you on Casual Conversations today. I'm Scott Wade, your host, and I have joining me today Sama Gilliland. Again, Sama, I think I did the same thing a year ago when you were on the program for a Christmas interview. I almost called you Sama Abbott, but welcome,
Isn't it the
Sama.
oddest thing?
That
Yes.
is crazy. You
You knew
haven't
me
been an
well,
Abbott.
Sama Abbott, and that
It's,
isn't.
it's
I do.
crazy, but it's
Yeah.
great to see you all the way
Good to
from
see
Canton,
you.
Ohio, to
Mhm.
join us on Casual Conversations. I appreciate it so much.
Thanks.
And I know you've been on before, but why don't you just take a minute and introduce yourself to our listeners?
Well, for some of you, if this is the first time you've ever seen me, you won't know this, but Scott, do I look different to you? Do I look relaxed and more refreshed?
I know where you're going with this.
I am 2.5 months retired, so I'm still getting that life under my legs. So as of right now, I'm kind of like a former something or other. As far as employment goes, former secretary, former licensed nursing home administrator, former pharmaceutical sales rep, former teacher. So that's kind of brings us to today. My current world involves Keith and my mom, who's 89, and my 3 precious granddaughters, and a pretty big to-do list. So
Yes.
I got to figure out what to do with this. I can't imagine like not working, but I don't have anything to go to right now. So I'm keeping my eyes and ears open for some meaningful kind of occupation ahead.
All right. Well, I could always use help at Momentum Ministries. Just keep that in mind.
Audio visual.
But you know how much it pays? It would
You
pay
can double
you
my
double what it
salary.
pays me. Oh, it's so good to see you and your husband Keith and I. We've been best of friends for 50
Mhm.
years now. So many good memories and so much of the grace of God into my life through your husband and also
Oh.
through your friendship. So thanks.
Oh, well, I always kind of wondered, and we never really talked about it. Since you guys were roommates, I always wanted to thank you for kind of prepping him to live peaceably with his next roommate, which was me. Or was it the other way around and he whipped you into shape?
Yeah, he did. I'm afraid we may have both failed in that category. Our Lana for me and you for him
Oh.
to whoop us into shape. So
Mhm.
you grew up in Southern Ohio, down on the river, didn't you?
I did, down in the most southern point of the state where
Yeah.
Kentucky and West Virginia and Ohio all meet.
So and now you're in Canton, Ohio, as I mentioned,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
been in the same house, and I always marvel
Heaven.
at this. You've been in the same house, what, 40 years or something like
Yeah. Yeah. And I was thinking of that actually, that Keith and I have stayed in the same neighborhood all this time, but you and Lana have had many places where you've left your mark and had ministry and made friends and all that stuff. And the neighbors change. And we're
Who's the old people down the street? Oh, that's the Gillilands.
that's right. Somebody tell them to mow their grass.
Yeah, I'm the one asking the question now, but hey, we've been here on John's Island for over 5 years. That's
Yeah.
it's almost ready to set a record as far as how long I've lived in the house. The only other house in my whole life, because we moved when I was a kid. When the rent caught up with us, we moved.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the only other house that I lived longer than what we've lived in this house was in Bethel, Ohio,
Uh-huh.
the place I pastored.
Yeah. That
So
was a
you
great house.
you spent your years doing a lot of different things. I remember you graduated from Mount Vernon Nazarene College at the time, and a degree in business or econ. I can't remember.
Business
And
administration.
you went right into nursing home administration, didn't you?
I did. And that was really a whirlwind. Um, it was when AIDS first hit, and that just rocked the medical world. So there was just constant new policies, new procedures. Oops, we've learned this. Don't do it that way anymore. Fast, quick, update everything and do it this way. And so there was lots and lots of upheaval at that time. And it required a lot of teaching and training. And when I look back on that time, that really was what I loved about it, was the teaching part.
Uh-huh.
So little did I know what the future held for me, but I did that for 17 years.
17 years. I always was so impressed with you and that wow, this is Sama and she's like running this place.
That's right.
I kind of
Yeah.
felt sorry for the inmates. I mean the residents.
We were actually Stark County Small Business of the Year one time.
Wow. Yeah, look at that. Go girl.
Me and my team.
And so you went into pharmaceuticals and spent
Yeah.
several years doing that.
Yes. And which was teaching all day, teaching doctors and nurses and pharmacists. So once again,
Yeah,
the
the
pattern here.
it looks like the road is being paved to what you
Yes.
finished with. Your last 19 years
Yeah.
were spent teaching.
Uh-huh.
So tell us about the transition into that. I mean, what made you decide to do that? I mean, obviously there was something happening in your life that, yeah, you better pay attention. It keeps happening over and over again, huh?
Yes. When I realized that I didn't love the sales part of pharmaceutical sales because it really is cutthroat and you have to impose on people. Well, I know there's a waiting room full of people here who are sick, but I need to see the doctor. So that part was very difficult for me. And so when I started stacking up, what do I want to do next? It really just came down to the teaching moments of all of my previous positions just added up to go back to school, be a school teacher. And it was the right thing to do.
So you went back and of course you already had a bachelor's degree, but you had to go back and get some training, coursework,
Oh,
and
yeah.
certification for teaching.
I wanted to teach history and social studies. And so I had to get all that core, like all the history courses and all that stuff, in addition to all the learning and curriculum classes and all of that kind of stuff. So it it took me longer than it might have somebody else, but I was in my
So
mid 40s. My kids were in junior high. It was upheaval here.
you you were some old lady and you were a student teacher, right?
That's right, exactly right. Um, what I
I bet you
remember,
confused a lot of young people in the classroom and during
yeah,
those years of student
well,
teaching.
both of our heads were spinning. When I was taking my entrance exams to go back to school, I remember one Sunday afternoon, I was having my kids who were in junior high at the time help me with math. And Brett, it was his turn. And we had been at it maybe 5 or 6 minutes. And he said, "Oh, Kelsey, can you come in here and help her? I'm exhausted." I said, "Oh, you do not have to do this. I'll figure it out on my own." So,
Yeah. Okay. So you went through the training
Mhm,
and the student teaching,
mhm.
then you had to get a job. Was that difficult?
It was. I kept thinking, oh my goodness, with my vast experiences in the corporate world, and I've raised these two amazing students in my own home and volunteer of, the youth group for decades and decades. People are going to be begging me to come to work for them. And then I would leave the interview thinking, oh, I own this place. And then 2 days later, I'd get my my rejection letter. What I realized is they wanted to hire teachers who would also coach. And I wouldn't. I felt like it diluted the teaching part too much. So I just wouldn't. And so I ended up getting a job at a school that didn't have any sports teams. It was all males, ages 12 to 21. They attended school very regularly because they were locked up there. It was the juvenile prison.
Oh
And
my.
yeah, the they were sentenced for all the crimes that would be considered adult felonies. Murder, rape, aggravated assault, all of those kind of things. So it was an outrageous, sometimes dangerous place. But they didn't have any sports teams. They hired me. I really
Except
did.
axe
What's that?
juggling or something, or knife juggling, knife dodging.
I really did feel like that I was equipped for that, though. I was um, a tough, love-minded leader, no matter where I was. And although teachers got attacked and injured, there really, in 5 years' time there was only really one time where I felt my immediate safety was at risk. And it didn't happen, but I was very aware of my surroundings, and I didn't take any risks that could have gotten me into trouble, but it was all around me.
So how long were you in the juvenile system like
I
that?
taught there 5 years.
5 years, and you commuted obviously to the
Yeah,
facility
yeah.
and had to go through all the security things
Yeah, my
every
freedoms
day.
were limited because I worked there,
Mhm.
going into that place and they take away things that could be taken away from you and used against you and things like that. So it was a very it was fascinating. It was a world that I knew nothing about. It really was fascinating to me, but it was also very discouraging. And uh,
On a personal level, discouraging because this is
yeah, there
this is
was,
what society is, or because this is how we
um,
treat these kids.
I think the discouragement for me came in my passion for learning and the needs, the academic needs of those kids was really severe because so many of them either hadn't attended school, um, and so their skills for reading and math were extremely low. And I taught middle school and high school there, and most of nearly all of my students were in the elementary school level for reading and writing
Mm.
and math. So to know what they needed and to be willing to work really hard to help them get there and then have them refuse it. I had a kid tell me one time, all I need to know is ounces and pounds, kilos and grams, and I'll be set. That's all I need to know. And so it was very discouraging, from that standpoint.
So you were, would you say you started that career path? The teaching path was a passion,
Mhm.
but then in the juvenile justice system, you that was more of a necessity, or did you go looking for that particular thing?
No, because I taught in a couple suburban schools. Um, there were involved parents, there were kids who were driven by grades and motivated by learning and those kind of things. So that environment just, ignited my passion for teaching. And then, but those were sub jobs. And I wasn't getting hired into a permanent position. And then I found the permanent position at the juvenile prison.
Okay, so stayed there 5 years, and
Mhm.
that was emotionally, you were just drained and time to move on. What prompted
I
you to?
was. I think what was happening to me too is that it began to lose its outrageousness in my mind. There were things that happened inside that razor wire that I had become to just expect, you know, the the violence and the foul language and those kind of things that were part of that environment. It was not that way in my classroom per se. I did have incidents where I'm right in the middle of this engaging lesson and we got class discussion, and the next thing I know, out of the corner of my eye, I see a student get up and just start beating on another student. It was a gang hit. So it's not like we stand up and argue, I said and you said and he said. It was just a hit. And so that kind of dysfunctional place was so foreign to me. And so as it happened day after day, that's the part that became distressing when I came to expect that in my razor wire world. And somebody wrote something really foul on my bathroom wall about me, and I thought, today's the day I'm done. So that was how my 5 years ended.
Uh-huh.
Hi, I'm Amy with Momentum Ministries. We are proud to announce our first book, written by an author other than Scott Wade. Christmas with Ruth, a part of our Christmas With series of Advent devotionals, was written by Pastor Lester Jones. In this book, you will journey with Ruth from sorrow and despair to joy and hope. This book, with one chapter for each of the 4 weeks of Advent, is designed for individual use, families, small groups, and even entire congregations. You can find Christmas with Ruth, along with our other Christmas devotionals, on our website, momentumministries.org.
Where'd you go from there? I mean,
I went to a public school, and I went into the emotionally disturbed special education department, it used to be called severe behavior. And so it was I felt like if I could teach here and help keep these kids out of prison, I mean, that's where they were headed with their behaviors and their disabilities for decision making and judgment and all of that. So that was kind of a step down in my probably my frustration level and things like that, because it felt more hopeful to me. To think, let's keep these kids out of that setting. And for a change, I was dealing with parents. In the prison, parents blocked their phone numbers. They didn't take calls from their children. They didn't take calls from the prison, from teachers. And so it made it even sadder that those kids didn't have any more support. So,
and you still had behavioral issues then. That's
significant
the children
behavior.
that you were
Sure.
teaching.
Sure.
Were there situations where you felt that your safety was endangered?
No, not there. Most of the conflicts were between students, and the worst thing they had to prove was they would be mouthy. They think, well, I'll smart off with her or I'll smart off to her and I'll gain some cred. People think, ooh, isn't he brave? Because I was very strict, and there have been students who told me they were scared of me and things like that. Usually those kids said that in retrospect. When I first came in your class, I was scared of you, because my philosophy always was start tough, because you can always lighten up later. It's a whole different story if you start, and then have to, pull in the reins. So I've always been very strict. Firm, fair, and consistent was always my philosophy, but above all that, love. So I think when the kids look back and they say things about me being strict, they would often say I was mean. So I would always have to correct that. No, if somebody's being mean to you, it's because they intend to harm you. I am strict. And I would tell parents who would call me, my kid said you did. And I said, well, I did. And here's what I said. And I'm probably the strictest teacher your kid will ever have. But I don't know that they'll ever find a teacher who loves them more than I do. And I would always say to my students, when you are older and you look back at this time in your life, you're not going to remember my name. And you're certainly not going to remember the things that I taught you. But I do hope you have the memory that somebody here loved you. And I was very free with telling my students that I loved them. I just didn't think they heard it enough. And I'm so thankful that God gave me that love to give, because a lot of those kids would have been considered unlovable by other adults in their world. So I was thankful to be placed in that position and to have the sensitivity to share what I had been given so freely.
Uh-huh. So did you finish out your teaching career in that capacity?
Yeah, in the public school, oh, no, I didn't. Actually, I changed it again. Within the same school district. Once I'd had 5 years of the prison and then 6 years doing the emotionally disturbed special education, I asked, is there anything else I can do? Because I'm about drained. And so I became an intervention specialist who went into the classroom. I followed students who had learning disabilities, and I would just follow them in their classes and give them support.
So I think I know how you'll answer this question. What you liked the least about it was it had an impact, it jaded you. Is there something you'd add? What was the least favorite part of your career?
Um, there were days when I really had to struggle to look for the joy. I could gain it in other settings when I saw kids learning, and I watched them improve and I watched their joy at conquering something, that was exciting to me. So I had to work pretty hard at it. I remember when a kid said thank you to me without me prompting it, I remember thinking, I can ride on this for a couple weeks. Speaking of that, I was, like I said, I was very strict. And in my classroom, if I didn't want something in there, it didn't happen. So at the prison, it was really tough because the language was not allowed in my room. And uh, there was so much of the slang I didn't know. So I always had this website open on my computer that would define foul language and, slang and stuff like that. So this one kid said something one day that was like, I thought, I think that's about drugs. And I quick checked and it was. And I said to him, you will not talk about that in this classroom. And he kind of looked like this and he said in a stage whisper, she ain't stupid. And I thought, oh, yes, I am, but I can type real fast. And so, even though I was strict, I wasn't afraid to be strict in the prison setting where it would have been easy to kind of back off and let's just get ourselves through the day. But I felt like I have to teach them. And I didn't do a lot of teaching of content area because I realized I'm not teaching subjects, I'm teaching kids. And these kids are broken. They don't know about coping skills and conflict management and how to set a goal for yourself and how to correct your mistakes. So I felt like I took on a very parental teaching life skills kinds of role in those, and actually in the public school setting with the emotionally disturbed kids also. And I knew my reputation. I knew what it was when a student was walking into the room and there was a new student with him. And he kind of said to him out the side of his mouth, she don't play. I thought, I don't let this white head of hair and this soft-spoken nature fool you, young man. Oh,
What's
goodness.
your favorite part? The light bulb coming on? You seeing that in the students? What?
That there was a lot of that at different times, but I think the deepest one of those was one of my students at the prison who was in high school and he was reading at a first grade level. And he was open to my help. And I took every minute I possibly could to help that young man. He was kind and respectful, and he didn't really fit the mold of his peers, but he was locked up for being in a car with his gang members during a drive-by shooting that killed somebody. So when he was getting ready to get released, the thought of this breaks my heart. He said, he thanked me for all of the help because he grew multiple grade levels in his reading. And when he was about to be released, he thanked me and he said, I reckon I know why God let me come to prison so I could learn how to read. Oh, And so, that really does stand out as the effort that was worth it. And how will that young man's life be different when he leaves? So that was a good one. There was a lot of racist kind of things, always getting accused of being racist and uh, things like that. And the one thing I remember about that particularly, I mean, it always made you really scared in the public schools, in the prison setting. It didn't matter, because if someone reported it and it was difficult to defend or whatever, you could just be in big trouble. And so I don't have any racism in my heart, but there's things you could absentmindedly do or say that could get you into trouble. And actually, there's two stories about racism that are pretty funny. One time we were talking about racist statements that have just become part of the regular conversation, and that people don't recognize that it's inappropriate. And when we were talking about Indian giver, and this little strawberry blonde kid with little freckles and blue eyes said, "Nobody better ever say that to me." And somebody said, "Why not?" And he said, "Because I'm a Chippehoy." I said, "You're a Chippehoy?" He goes, "Yes." And he goes, "Dude, you just called yourself a cookie." And so another kid said, "Are you talking about a Cherokee?" And he looked at him like he's nuts. And he goes, "No." And I said, trying to rescue the kid, I said, "Well, are you referring to Chippewa?" And he goes, "Yeah, that's it." And the other kid said, "Dude, a Chippewa is not a cookie." And then it's really hard in that prison setting to establish relationships and keep them, because there's a real constant turnover. Students come in when they get sentenced, and it might be the middle of a school year. They might get transferred out to another institution. And then their sentences are over and they leave. So it's just a constant turnover. And so, because this student had been there for a while, and he and I had been together through a lot, and I worked really hard to develop a relationship with him. And he was an African-American kid. And one day he walked into history class and he said, "I'm a racist." And I said, "Wow, I'm sorry you made that choice. Who are you racist against?" And he said, "White people." And I said, "Well, why did you choose to be racist against white people?" And he said, "Well, because white people's done my people's wrong." And I said, "You are right about that." And I said, "There are white people who wronged Black people, and I'm really sorry about that. But wait a second, I'm white and I haven't done anything to harm your people. Are you racist against me?" And he kind of stopped short and he goes, "Well, no, because you kind of reddish." So my little pink cheeks just glowed when he said that.
You're kind of reddish.
Yes. Oh, goodness.
Well, we're gonna have to finish up, I'm afraid. I'm enjoying this. But is there anything else that you said, man, I really wanted to say that I don't want to pull the plug on this until you've
Oh,
had
goodness.
opportunity.
No, I was never teacher of the year or mother of the year. Maybe I'll be the retiree of the year. I'm waiting for some kind of recognition. So your podcast is doing that for me.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna I mean it's just your profile's on the way up now.
Yeah. Resume builder.
Well, as I pray, I'll pray not only for you and Keith in your retirement years, but also for our educators. Some of them are in
Oh,
tough
please do that.
situations, aren't they? Don't think
Well,
about
they are. So I would encourage our listeners to be supportive of teachers in your world. It's not just a tough job, it's getting tougher. I would say daily. It really is. It really is tough.
let's pray. God, I thank you today for bringing Sam on Casual Conversations. Thank you for directing her through life. And she's 2.5 months into this gig and still learning.
Mhm.
And Lord, she's invested so much in so many lives, whether it's people at the end stages of their life in the nursing home, or people who are sick through pharmaceuticals. And Lord, in this last journey to help those students in prison and other behavioral situations. Thank you, God, that you raised her up for such a time as this. And bless her and Keith and their children and grandchildren. And Lord, may we remember that teachers that we have for our kids, they take on an important role, and we need to support them and encourage them. Help our teachers to be wise, knowledgeable, and Lord, as Sama said, to be filled with love for their students. And so thank you, God, for teachers just like her. Continue to raise up young people to follow in her footsteps. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sama.
Yeah.
I'm not asking you to sign up now because you're just 2.5 months into this gig, but would you do it again?
Would I teach again or do casual conversations?
Yeah. Well, this is
Yeah.
the second time, so I know you're
Yeah,
hooked.
I'm
You're
hooked.
hooked.
Would I teach again? Who knows? I may come out of retirement for it.
Yeah. Well, good for you.
Yeah.
God
Yeah.
bless you.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you
love
for
you
making an
playing up.
investment in our children's lives and our
Yeah,
futures.
thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
All
And
right.
thank you for watching Casual Conversation or listening to Casual Conversations today. God bless you. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening in on Casual Conversations by Momentum Ministries. Check out our website at momentumministries.org, where you will find books and other resources to help you attain, maintain, and regain spiritual momentum. God bless you and have a great day.